Hello and welcome to the Craft Beer Corner. For today's beer review, we are jumping in to a sour from Modist Brewing Company based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. This specific beer is called SIppin Forgettin, and it is a Berliner Weisse that's been brewed with lemon juice, coconut, Madagascar vanilla, and lactose. This one clocks in at 5% ABV. So it's been a while since we've reviewed one of Modist's beers. This one, very bright yellow, and it's got kind of a skeleton outline on a foil, kind of on the label. It's hard to describe, standing in like a blue duck float. I'm not sure how best to describe it. Not sure if the camera is picking that up, but that's what's on the label. Bright yellow to get you in the mood for that lemon. And for my money, when I saw this one, yes, I did get it from Tavour. I said, okay, I love a good Berliner Weisse, and lemon is a great beer ingredient for a lighter beer or a sour in particular, and then mixed with coconut. That sounds like a great combination to me. So let's get this cracked. We're going to use our all-purpose glass today, our nice tall one. We'll see if we can get this whole beer in here on first pour. All right. Nice light pale straw color. Looks very, very, very nice. Yeah, I normally use a goblet, but this is got, this glass has a nice kind of tulip. It may be a little hard to see, but it not quite as aggressive in the tuliping as on my Sam Adams all-purpose glasses, but this one holds a pint and a little more because this is a true pint 16-ounce can here. So visually, it's a lovely beer. I'm already starting to get aromas off of it, and I'm a good foot and a half from this. Yeah, it's that classic Berliner kind of straw yellow pale color. This one's pretty active in terms of carbonation. I see a very fast rush of kind of medium-sized bubbles and then slower, kind of fine champagne-like. So this one didn't really try to form a head at all. Even if it had, it would have collapsed very quickly due to that really quick rush of those medium-sized bubbles. On a sour, that's what we want. No head, a mouthful of sour foam is not ideal. So looking at it, it looks great. Let's get right up for a proper sniff. Oh man, wow. Okay, everything they added in this beer really jumps out at you. The lemon is quite pronounced, as is that vanilla. The coconut, I'm getting in the aroma a little bit, but it's a little more subtle. Lemon is a pretty dominant aroma, as is vanilla typically. And it's a Berliner, so yes, it's sour, but it's not as stringently sour as a beer style. It's got souring, but it's not mouth puckering like a kettle sour or something like that. It's more subtle. So there is a little bit of an aroma of sour and tart kind of blend coming off of it. And certainly with the lemon juice in there, that's gonna really kind of assist both in the acidity and in the aroma as well. So it kind of brings out more of that tart aroma side to accentuate it in the aroma profile of this beer. But nonetheless, it looks fantastic. It smells fantastic. I'm excited for this one. I've been saving this one. I'm ready to jump in. Let's see what this is about. Ooh, yeah. Oh, that's really nice. That's a very refreshing beer. Okay, so the first thing I would say is it's a Berliner Weisse, so it's not supposed to be sharply sour or tart. You get a little bit, just a little kiss of it up front. It's more tart than it is sour, and it's subtle. It's not pungent at all. So if you're not a fan of these big, big, big sour beers, this is still one that you might, I mean, it's very quick and then it's immediately dialed back. And it's subtle. So it's not one of those this mouth puckering at all. It's not supposed to be. That's not what Berliner Weisses are about. So this has that nice, just little push at the front, backs off, and you immediately get that lemon and in particular that vanilla. And I gotta say, just as with the aroma profile, the coconut and the flavor of this is actually a little more subtle. It's driving with the lemon, which I kind of expected with this bright yellow can, and that's actually one of the reasons I got it. I'm a big fan of Radlers, which is one of my favorite German beer styles, especially on a hot Florida day. But I thought, okay, so they're taking a Berliner Weisse and kind of twisting classic Rodler formula. That's what it sounds like to me. I gotta say, very, very clever and pleasantly surprised. It's very nice. The other thing I would say is, yes, there is lactose in this beer, the milk sugar, to let the flavor speak, but it does not taste sweet. This is not a sweet beer. That would actually really overpower the mild tartness and sourness that comes in this beer style inherently. But it's just enough to let the lemon come through clearly, taste like lemon, to let the vanilla come through clearly, taste like vanilla, and that little subtlety of the coconut come through clearly and taste like coconut. It's very, very nice. So there was a lot for my brain to process. Kind of the first time I've had a beer with this even quasi-related combination of flavors. So I'm going to jump back in for another sip here to do this justice. I'll think texture first, then we'll talk about this flavor profile and get into the finish. But very, very nice, very refreshing, extremely tasty beer. Medium light for the body, mildly resistant for the mouthfeel, but not a ton. Essentially, for a 5% ABV on a Berliner Weisse, it feels texturally and weight-wise exactly where I would expect. On second sip, letting the flavors re-intensify, I'm definitely picking up a little more coconut on second sip. The lemon and the vanilla are still clearly there, but it takes a second sip for the flavor to kind of stack. And it does kind of open up. It almost reminds me of like a some kind of a lemon confection, maybe a lemon tart or a lemon square with slight modifications, maybe a lemon cookie. It's got this bright freshness to it. And the reason that I'm thinking it reminds me of a confection really comes down to the classic traits of this Berliner Weisse malt bill. They are the type that have this kind of baked good quality to them, kind of bready, kind of crust-like that comes through, and then bound with these other ingredients. It's almost like you're drinking a lemon-based dessert, and it's absolutely delicious. The other thing I can say about this beer is Berliner Weisses kind of run the gamut from extreme to not very, although they kind of fall somewhere in the middle, as being a mildly sour beer style, having a prototypical drying effect on the palate, which is common with sours. This one is extremely subtle. It takes about 20-30 seconds to happen after the finish kind of dissipates, and it's right on the very tip of the tongue. It is not pronounced, it's not an astringency with the dryness. It's just a little subtlety that gives it this nice crisp, clean feeling to the end. And otherwise, it's mostly round and relatively wet. It takes about 20-30 seconds before you get just on the tip of the tongue, that little truncation. And it's really, really nice. What else I could say about this beer? In terms of the finish, it's a Berliner Weisse. They're not known for having astronomically long finishes. This one really doesn't either. Even though it's got all of these different flavors in it, and it's really nice, and it's pretty bold in terms of the pungency of those flavors in compare and contrast to, say, the malt bill side of the equation. But it's not anything that really lingers around you. There's really no discernible bitters in this beer at all. It's just this nice flavor with a little bit of tartness, a little bit of sour, and just letting the malt bill speak and everything kind of work in concert. I gotta say, overall, I really like the balance. If anything, I might like just a little bit more of the coconut to come through. The vanilla and the lemon are speaking very clearly to me. The coconut's a little more subtle. A little extra coconut in this, for my money, just to balance the three kind of flavors together a little bit more. I would personally like, but I don't want to say it's an unbalanced beer. Just a mild tweak that I would make subjectively. But overall, a very, very nice beer. A very well done example of a Berliner Weisse. And I think this is a really interesting and delicious combination of flavors. And I'm a big fan. I'm going to take my time, sip on this beer, come up with my scores. When we come back, we'll get this one ranked from top to bottom. All right, now that we've gotten to enjoy this beer, we're going to get it ranked. This was Modist Brewing Company's SIppin Forgettin, a Berliner Weisse, clocking in at 5% ABV, brewed with lemon juice, coconut, Madagascar vanilla, and lactose. Modist Brewing is based in Minneapolis, Minnesota. So starting with the aroma. This had a very pronounced aroma indeed. It was one of those, Berliner Weisses. Normally you can smell them, but they're not hugely pungent. The additives in this beer really were the driving factor. The lemon you could smell very clearly, as could the vanilla. The coconut was a little more subtle, but it smelled very nice. Had a little bit of a suggestion of a tartness and sweetness on the aroma. It smelled really fantastic. Aroma gets a 10 out of 10. For the taste, overall, I really enjoyed the combination of flavors here. Coconut, again, was a little subtle for my liking on the flavor profile. The lemon was very prominent. The vanilla was very prominent. And really the balance in the flavor profile, the lactose, it was the right amount to let the added ingredients speak, but not make it sweet. So it had a little bit of a sharpness, a sour and tart up front. It was kind of a woo woo, but relatively subtle. And overall, I really enjoyed it. But for me, the balance needed a little tweaking. It needed more coconut. And I got a sense of that on the aroma, and it was confirmed once I tasted it. It was there, but it was much more lemon and vanilla prominent, and I would have liked a little more coconut to balance out that flavor profile. But still above average taste, 8 out of 10. For the body, this was textbook for the style for the ABV range, 10 out of 10. For the mouthfeel, same story here. It met my expectations. It gets a 10 out of 10. For the finish, Berliner Weisses are not a style that are particularly well known for having a very long finish. They're not a hoppy beer style, so there's no lingering bitters. This did have a pretty impressive flavor profile in terms of intensity of the added ingredient flavors, but it did dial back pretty quickly, and it really didn't leave a super long lingering residual on the palate to push that finish out at all. Overall, it was just average. It gets a 5 out of 10. For the head and retention, this one basically didn't form one. That's what you want in a sour, 10 out of 10. For the appearance, this was textbook Berliner Weisse, that light straw yellow pale color, 10 out of 10. For the balance on this beer, in general, I enjoyed. But I alluded to this when I talked about the flavor profile. Really for me, specifically calling it a Berliner Weisse with lemon and coconut, the coconut was too subtle. The vanilla really took a front kind of limelight position in this beer compared to the coconut. It was just too subtle. It wasn't imperceptible, but it was too subtle, and it really needed more bones. It needed more volume of the coconut in here to really let it balance out with the other flavors. That said, it did taste delicious, and in general, I thought the balance was very nice. Balance, 8 out of 10. Feeling in the intangible, subjectively, I enjoyed it. But the coconut, I wanted more to balance it better. But I only docked 1 point here subjectively, 9 out of 10. Finally, this is an example of the style. So in the grand scheme of things, this beer did very, very well. Finish, I expected it to be average, so you're basically losing 5 points right off the bat. But just a few minor little tweaks. And in the grand scheme, I think this was a very well done Berliner Weisse, particularly for a flavored Berliner Weisse. With these additives, sure, a few little tweaks I would have made, but at the core, for what it was, I think they did a very good job, and this is a very good representation of what the style is. I give it full points, 10 out of 10, which brings the total score on Modist Brewing Company's SIppin Forgettin to a 90 out of 100. So yet again, another well above average beer. If you're a fan of sours, flavor sours, this is one I would recommend, especially if you like this combination of ingredients. And if you're just getting into sours and you don't like the really mouth-puckering ones, Berliner Weisses are a good place to start, as are Gosas, and this is a really good example of that. Just a small little push, then immediate pullback of sour and tart up front, and lacking the intensity of, say, like a kettled sour. But absolutely delicious beer. Folks, that's today's review. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you tuning in today. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you want to stay in the loop when our videos go live, just hit that bell icon. It's right next to the subscribe button. Until next time, keep it beer, keep it craft. We'll see you on the next one. Cheers.